Much.
All right, and I think the biggest stories of the day across all the newspaper is that we have this morning. We pick the People Daily and Travel Church big winners in partial opening, and here we are. I think that is the biggest thing that we're discussing this morning. What do you make of President Uhuru Kenyatta's address yesterday?
Okay, as a Christian, first of all, the thing that's very evident is that the church doesn't really have a voice in the current governance setup. And we appreciate that the pandemic is real and that restrictions are necessary, but it's laughable to see political meetings taking place with, 200 plus people, and then you restrict worship or, church services to 100 people. You restrict the ages and you restrict the time. So it's akin to taking away what real worship is. And I think it's what the president did was actually he just washed his hands off that, delegated that very critical and sensitive matter to a committee, meaning from now on, any unpopular decision that comes from the committee is rendered as not from the president. I don't think that was leading from the front. As Christians, we can take it. We can take it and accept that, it's better than nothing, but it's a far cry.
But how much can would have the president, what would have the president done, sincerely speaking, if not to delegate? Because you realize there are numerous sectors that require his attention, and we all acknowledge that indeed the church is very much important. For the very first time, I'm getting a person who's bringing a different opinion to this. And in most cases, you'll find that church elders or church leaders would probably argue that, the president wants to bulldoze and do things his own way. So for once, he allows them to proceed and make recommendations that he tasks them to ensure that they are achieved. So sincerely speaking, what else could he have done?
I mean, it's true, and it's a good thing that he delegated some of the tasks. But still, the buck stops with the president. He's the president. It doesn't mean when you present recommendations, he just takes it as they are. You see, there's a reason why he is the leader of the country. The thing is, supermarkets are allowing people in. It's considered an essential service. So as long as you sanitize, your temperature is taken, as long as you exercise social distancing, business can continue. Why can't the same thing be done for churches? Why can't they just say, as long as you take the temperature, people are sanitized, if the room needs to be fumigated or sanitized, every so often, but to restrict the time, I mean, what can you pray or worship in 1 hour?
Oh yeah? Is that not enough to just listen to the word?
You can teach, but there's more to church than just teaching. Yeah. So
but many would argue would still do all this, religious activities even when at home. And I think we've done that. That's how sometimes you find that we have home fellowships and all that.
No, and that's why we are saying we will take what has been given, but it is not the ideal. We would, as Christians, or as a person who attends church service, would have appreciated maybe more efforts like, you can social distance, placement of seats, you can sanitize, you can take temperature checks.
There are churches that hold more than 100 people. They're actually 100 people that has been given on board. So probably he's looking at a scenario where in one day we're going to, as a church, maybe they're going to conduct like 3 services. In the event that your church, holds, a majority of people, so you can find a way where you can strike a balance, get 1 hour the first lot, then probably a relaxation of about 30 minutes. The next slot comes in after another hour.
My question is, actually, Mr. President, pray do tell, how are you going to regulate or enforce, not him, but the church, the 100 person restriction? Are you going to have like someone counting people, and then do congregants now have to make an appointment so that you don't get there and find they're already 100? I mean, the restrictions on worship are crazy.
Are you faulting the recommendations that were presented?
I think they could have been better. I think they could have been better, and I think maybe not enough consultation or public participation went into it. True, the committee was tasked with it, but we have something called public participation. If really we are a country of 84% Christians, then there should have been more input on this. If we can get into a supermarket, and have very many people in there for the whole day, rotating.
There was like a week or so, or two, I think, where this was opened for the public to weigh in their sentiments, to present their what would be their recommendations. I don't know what criteria they used, but I can remember very well that the public was called upon to present their recommendations. But that aside, President Uhuru Kenyatta insists that it is individual responsibility. So just how much can we be responsible to see to it that it's okay? We should not wait for the arm of the government. We should not wait for our leaders, our church leaders, to be the people who are going to tell us what it is that we're supposed to do.
I just want to finish on the church issue by saying the current restrictions on worship, it's actually akin to persecution of the church, in my view. Moving on to the issue of individual responsibility, to some extent, I agree with him, because this is not something the government can do on its own. Citizens also have to take, civic responsibility for ensuring the virus spread is contained, and that means, you adhere to the measures that the government has set in place to curb the spread of this virus. And it just takes me back to the whole, when the BBI task force was presenting their report.
Recommendations.
One of the chapters was on national ethos, which really spoke about our attitude and our, belief as Kenyans. So I think it's really important that the president touched on this issue of individual responsibility and civic responsibility, because if we flout the rules, we're essentially hurting ourselves. But that doesn't absolve the government from its role, like to lead this process and see it through to proper, to a proper close. Because we've entrusted the government with our resources and with leadership, we still expect them to lead from the front, not to now, abdicate all responsibility to the citizens.
All right. Well, let's pick. Just remind you of some of the people who've won, who've lost on this one, and travel up country from city is now officially allowed. That's a polite way of saying that the president removed the ban on travel in and out of Nairobi, Mombasa, and Mandera, allowing PSV operators and others to resume trips up country, but on restrictions and remaining adamant that they need to abide by the restrictions that have been given on board by the Ministry of Health. And religious gatherings, places of worship allowed to open, but with strict conditions. They can accommodate only 100 people, elderly and children locked out. And air travel resumption, local flights resume from July the 15th, while international travel to start on August the 1st. And travelers will have to be tested for coronavirus before they proceed to the next level. And education institutions, CS Magoha is set to announce the plans of resumption of learning. This is today, so we eagerly wait for that. We'll be following up on that story by Andrin Kilemi, and we'll update you. Imported second-hand clothes, Ministry of Trade is asked to establish protocols to clear the way for the importation and sale of imported second-hand clothes. And bars and restaurants, President restricts operations of bars to take away only in an effort to enforce the health protocols on social distancing and family routines. As you can see, businesses to continue experiencing disruption after Uhuru extends national 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. curfew by 30 days. And social political gatherings, ban on social gatherings including political rallies, funerals and weddings is set to continue for another 30 days. That's approximately a month. And just coming to the numbers, where we stand at, 181 cases were recorded as of yesterday, and there you go, getting the number of COVID-19 in the country to 8,067 as of now. The people who have recovered stand at 2,414, 164 deaths we have captured, and out of samples that have been tested, 191, 394,000. There you go. And also picking up on this, there's another interesting story here that has been captured on page 2. that is totally different from the matters COVID-19 and President Uhuru Kenyatta's address. And President Uhuru Kenyatta wades into Senate revenue stalemate. Intervention leads to cancellation of planned Speaker's Kamkunji that was expected to be highly charged due to differences over counties' cash sharing. And this is something that has been going on for a week approximately right now. Here is the story captured on page 2. And coming to you, Vivienne, this continues to be a challenge, especially when it comes to the fact that, we have not really been able to experience the fruits of devolution in totality. And now the aspect of monies that are coming from the national government channels to the counties is becoming a problem, especially on how best these monies can be shared across different counties, knowing very well that the needs are different and the capabilities are equally as different.
Okay, so my take on the cash, sharing crisis is something needs to change. We cannot have monies going into counties, 70% of that amount going into recurrent expenditure and only 30% into, development. The whole idea of counties and devolution was to empower, to share out, resources of the country into the counties so that it can benefit the people who don't necessarily live in the bigger cities, right?
Yeah.
So there's something that needs to be done. And I really think it starts from the entire maybe budgeting process and how we decide how much money is allocated to the counties. As it is right now, I'm aware that they use revenues from 5 years ago because the catch is they're using revenue that's been audited revenue, and they used from 5 years ago. So you can imagine if this year our budget is 1.something trillion, but we are not basing it on this year's budget. We are basing the money going to the counties on money that was collected 5 years ago, so 2015, 2016. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
All right. Well, we can only wait to see on this particular stalemate what exactly will happen. But yes, it's something that is going on. And in regards to the proposals that are being presented by the Senate, that is Senator Sam Ongeri says that there should be no loser or gainer in whatever formula that is going to be put on board. And he says that they will ensure that there is equity and equality. We can only wait to see what is going to be agreed upon over this, because then, of course, in a way, it has told the activities at the level of the counties. And moving on, like I said,
sorry,
yes?
allow me just to say something on still the issue of cash sharing to the counties.
Okay.
One of the issues we have as a country is the perception of fair distribution of resources.
Yeah.
It is one of the reasons why there's a clamor for power. It is one of the reasons why we've had fights and divisive elections every 5 years, because it is perceived that not every area gets development or gets government support equally or fairly, so to speak. So it is very critical for the Commission on Revenue Authority to see how they can work out a formula that is perceived to be fair by all counties. Yeah.
All right. When you talk about that, then I would want to ask this. Fair is relative in this case, right?
Yeah.
Because then you cannot say that they will all get equal amounts based on the capabilities and the needs that are down there, right?
The issue is not equal. The issue is perception of fairness, because the truth is not all counties have the same resources or the same population or the same infrastructure. So you cannot blanketly say every county will get 200 million, for example. Nairobi County is very different from Mombasa, is very different from Nakuru, but the counties and the people living in those counties need to feel that they have been considered fairly as citizens of Kenya. Yeah.
How fair that is going to be is a question of wait and see. And I mean, in what has made the better part of course, the newspapers today, still on the president's address, like we had said earlier on, it's all up to you. President Uhuru Kenyatta tells Kenyans that, in the event that they want, for us to proceed and reopen, of course, he has declared the reopening and stay open. we can only behave. So at least we're able to tame the virus. If we do not, then we might be as well taken back to that point of a lockdown. And politics will always find its way on some of these key issues that we are talking about. And on President Uhuru Kenyatta's address, some people arguing that it was not right for Deputy President William Ruto to keep off again as head of state speaks to the nation. I mean, the politics of Jubilee is just out of this world, Vivienne.
So now we have Jubilee Asili, quote unquote,
yeah.
And we have the Jubilee as we know it. I think it's interesting that the deputy president would stay away.
Yeah.
Interestingly, before, prior to 2020, 2019, the fallout that's now public, I mean, these guys would show up in matching ties, hand in hand, just speaking of the very close chemistry and working relationship they had. So it's very clear now that they have an acrimonious working relationship. You can see from the body language. You can see just from how they interact when they're in public together. It's no longer a secret. So I'm not surprised that the deputy president did not show up. Why would he endorse, the president when there seems to be issues regarding their working relationships? A couple of days ago, the deputy president is on record saying, he's asking church leaders and just the country to pray for him because the people, his people and anybody, his allies, people who are close to him are seemingly being targeted. So it means he's already speaking and saying he doesn't like what is going on. He may not have said it in those exact words, but you can pick from his sentiments that he shares in public. Yeah.
All right. Well, that aside, I think it's more or less of how, of course, to reopen in most of the pages that we're talking about. Nairobi residents also commend President Uhuru Kenyatta move to lift the order. By the way, I haven't gotten your opinion on this. Was it a good move? Looking at the projections that we're getting, I mean, since we started recording the very first case, we've been shooting up. The numbers have been surging by the day. So is this a good move by the president?
I think it's a good move. The lifting of the cessation order was a good move. First of all, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that more and more people are being tested means definitely the numbers testing positive will be on the rise. That should not come as a surprise. However, we need to get to the place where we realize that this is not a disease that will just quietly go away. We need to get to a place where we are able and willing to accept that we must live with it. We must find a new way of doing things that enables us to, learn, work, play coexist basically with the virus in place, because lives cannot stop. Businesses have closed, people have lost jobs. When you look at the deaths caused by malaria, HIV, and non-communicable diseases, you cannot compare them to the 140 or so of COVID fatalities that we've had over the last 3-4 months. It's ridiculous that we locked a whole, economy and country.
And we still are.
Yeah. Okay, granted that when it started, nobody knew how to handle it and nobody knew how bad it would be. And so it was important to be cautious. But once we could see a clear direction of how things were going, I think we would have put different measures in place. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
But I definitely support the opening of the economy and lifting of the cessation orders from the counties of Nairobi and Mombasa.
And I think the cartoon edition also on the People Daily supports, or probably speaks volumes of, how indeed the economy had suffered, the blow continues to suffer. We'll be looking at that. But then again, like I said, the stories are all about the COVID-19 panic over possible contact of MP's dead spouse. Remember the woman rep who lost the husband, of course, due to COVID-19. Talks are here that panic has gripped Mogosho town, Baringo County, after it emerged that the husband of woman rep Gladwell Cheruiyot, who allegedly succumbed to COVID-19 on Saturday, had spent considerable amount of time in the area recently. So that is something that, of course, is left for the burden, or is a burden to the government or the Ministry of Health, especially on the aspect of contact tracing and all that. And still also noting on the numbers that we've hit the 8,000 mark, even as the lift on the cessation is ongoing and the order is out here. We ask whether we are safe or not. Microbiologists explain corona test variances. And here we are. I think the biggest challenge that these people face is first to advise the government on the ways forward, and most importantly, try to crack their brains on how best we can get a vaccine, if not remedy in totality. And let's just pick the cartoon edition as we look out on the newspaper review. You can see the cartoon edition?
Not very clearly.
Are you able to see that? I think it should be on your screen, yes? I will keep readjusting it depending with how COVID-19 behaves. Those are the words of the president, I'd want to assume, and you can easily see what the economy is going through in terms of the adjustments that are happening. So right now, at least some ease in a way, but just for how long?
Well, that's a good question. We don't know for how long, but the thing that's clear is the economy has been adversely affected, and businesses and individuals need support. I know there's some 3 billion that's been earmarked for SMEs and for credit guarantee for SMEs. But what I'd like to say is the government needs to remember to ring fence some of these funds for youth-owned businesses, for women-owned businesses, so that when we talk SMEs, it doesn't just go to the traditional SMEs that the government knows. There's micro, there's small, there's medium, and there needs to be a clear demarcation of how much of these funds will go to each of these groups of people, including youth and women and the disadvantaged groups. There was also, when we're talking about the issue of reopening the economy, there was the issue of air travel expected to resume from 15th July. I think that's really, really good. Airlines have been one of the most really badly affected businesses, and it's a very welcome move from the president that they will get back to business. Yeah. All
right, and speaking of which, let's pick some in a minute or so. Just take a look at some of the reactions that we had on Twitter. Hashtag Uhuru Cares, different hashtags, President Uhuru Kenyatta, and of course hashtag reopening, all ongoing. And the beauty of it is that Kenyans have received this so well, and they've also looked at what President Uhuru Kenyatta has said in terms of us being, personally responsible, and they have embraced that, which is a good thing, and I think it's commendable. If at all we'd want to be successful on this one, Kiaria James KE says that for those who are reopening their businesses, anybody in your premises should wear a mask. It's not the same anymore. We have to be responsible as Kenyans. Hashtag Uhuru Cares. I think that's a good one right there. And different reactions in regards to the reopening. Let's take a look at some of these reactions that are coming on board. So much so of them. These ones are this morning. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the freedom to move from county to county. I can't call it freedom if after 2 weeks we go to another total lockdown. Uhai wako, jukumu lako. So it's important that we are all responsible, and of course just painting a picture of the recycling or getting us to a point whereby we'll have to go back to this particular point in the event that we are not careful at all. So yeah, here we are. Okay, well, Felix Olela has a different, reaction. He says Borojo. I don't know how. Well, maybe just because he thinks that maybe we're going to get a point whereby we'll have to go back to there. But then again, we do not want such a scenario. And yes, leaders from Western region. I don't know. Well, the Western region. I think I need to ask you something about the Western region
the
and the elusive
Nation unity.
Yes.
Yes, what's the question?
No, well, just technically, what do you make of it? Well, there's someone who's reacting to them, leaders from Western region.
Honestly,
stay safe. I think that, they're being called to stay safe, or being called on to stay safe because the numerous meetings that they've been holding over the weekend. Yes.
It's very interesting. I think, first of all, the two leaders, ANC and Ford Kenya.
Yeah.
It is good that they are supporting each other, but they need to be honest with each other, because when the rubber meets the road and one of them needs to run for presidency, I really doubt if the other person would back his compatriot and agree to be the deputy. And when you look at it keenly, really, in terms of representation, in terms of legislators and elected representatives who've been elected to county assemblies and national assemblies, how much clout do the two parties have? I think Ford Kenya has like maybe 8 MPs, ANC maybe 12, I'm not sure of the exact number, but collectively, I think elected there are about 20 or not more than 25 in a country that has 290 elected members of parliament. That just goes to show you the level of influence that they have. So for them to say that they have, national support and to purport to be, the spokespeople and the ones who carry the heart and aspirations of the Mulembe nation, I think is a fallacy. They really need to be honest with themselves and look at the reality of it. It's one thing to want to be the leader and the spokesperson. It's another thing to actually be, based on your level of influence, based on the number of representatives you have elected, and based on your even ability to mobilize resources and people. So Mulembe Nation unity for now, I don't see it happening unless there's a clear chance of a presidential candidate, and I don't see any of them right now being a potential. Maybe in the next 5, 7 to 10 years, they will have a potential candidate that they can rally around. For now, the divisions are between the sub-tribes, it's just too much. The interests are varied. So it's very different from, Bukusu to support Marachi or, Maragoli. The differences are too varied right now.
Well, all right, there you go. Great opinion right there. Different one from, of course, the numerous ones that we've had before. Yes, the Mulembe unity, as elusive as it has always been. And on the last tweet, Musa Walaikipia says, vaa barakoa na uwache ujeuri, utaishi siku nyingi, duniani maisha hayapendi ujeuri na kiburi. There you go. And I think I'll wind up on the tweets. We'll be coming back with what is happening on the roads as we cross over to the discussion on matters current affairs after this break.
Hello viewers, how are you? And karibu sana to the Throwdown. My name is Hamadi Murila, welcoming you to TV47. Hello viewers, how are you? And karibu sana to the Throwdown. My name is Hamadi Murila, welcoming you to TV47. Today being Sunday, we have so much to do. We are going to do cooking, but I have a giveaway for you, our viewers, those guys that have been watching us ever since the show started. But I'm not going to take you back. We have a Meko for you to win. You can use that in your house. You can travel with it to picnics or wherever you wish to go to. Yeah, so you can use this Meko. in so many other ways, and it's